Republicans are currently taking any opportunity they can with those who are opposing the devastation in Gaza to paint them as anti-Semitic. They love having this attempt to cosplay as being against anti-Semitism. But unfortunately for them, the New York Times just dropped an in-depth report about how utterly normalized some of the most out and out anti-Semitic tropes have become from those in elected office. And we want to jump into it. If you want all of the details, the article is how Republicans echo anti-Semitic tropes despite declaring support for Israel. And they do both of those things. They ostensibly want to support Israel, and then they also are perfectly willing to harbor some of the most anti-Semitic individuals and organizations as a part of their base. We're talking about literal KKK, okay? Literal neo-Nazis. In any event, here's a little bit of what you can find. For instance, in Trump campaign emails and lawmakers' press releases, tweets, and newsletters. So references to globalist cabals or cables, if you're Marjorie Greene, the man behind the curtain who's doing things, billionaire puppeteers and globalist elites that hate them, the American people, and want them humiliated, destroyed, and replaced. That last bit there is, of course, a reference to replacement theory, which for a very long time was the theory that there are wealthy, influential Jewish people working behind the scenes to bring migrants in from, I don't know, South America and Africa or whatever to replace good white people. Why exactly they'd be doing it, never really made clear, but that was the theory. That used to just be a thing you'd find on neo-Nazi websites. Is now a thing that Fox News talks about on a daily basis. And the richest man in the world has turned Twitter into a haven for that sort of talk. And so you see that all over the place. The puppet imagery, the globalist cabal, all of this utterly textbook anti-Semitic rhetoric. But it isn't just that it's being used, as we'll get into, it's how much it's being used these days. Now, I want to dive a little bit more into the tropes though. The current formulation of the trope taps into the populist loathing of an elite ruling class. Globalists or globalist elites are blamed for everything from Black Lives Matter to the influx of migrants across the southern border, often described as a plot to replace native-born Americans with foreigners who will vote for Democrats. They were blamed for the COVID vaccine. They're blamed for the campus protests that we're seeing right now. And by the way, it's generalized opposition of these people. And then there's the one figurehead, of course, George Soros, who I'm sure you've heard about ad nauseum. The favored personification of the globalist elite, they identify as George Soros, the 93-year-old Hungarian-American Jewish financier and Holocaust survivor who spends money supporting liberal causes and democratic institutions. So he has actually done that. And because he's done that, they say that every single thing that gets done is thanks to him. I am sure there are people claiming that the damage report is funded by Soros. I would love some money. Haven't gotten any. I can say at least up until this point. And by the way, some of the imagery is just amazing. Like you might remember this. This is from a Trump campaign email, okay? It is literally evoking the 1940s era, pre-Nazi, like or Nazi era of anti-Semitic tropes of Jewish people being puppet masters. Like that was a Trump campaign email. Oh, but Trump is so worried about the anti-Semitism on college campuses. He's just literally using their iconic imagery. And I mentioned that it's become more common, and dear God has it. Here is the use of the terms globalist or Soros in public statements by members of Congress by year. You can see that the year before, or the year that Donald Trump came down that golden escalator, there was one reference, one statement, okay? In 2023, there were 318. And almost every year, reliably, it continued to go up. And the number of members of Congress who are doing it as well has gone up. Now, in terms of number of mentions, I think that Marjorie Greene is nearly 1/3 of the mentions. But that said, there are dozens and dozens of them that are now doing it. They know what they're doing, and we know why they're doing it. They're putting those tropes out there because there are people on the right, regular people that like those tropes. They love seeing the world through that lens, and that's why the right plays to that. And so, like, spare us your concerns about anti-Semitism when you've been literally fundraising off of the same imagery and helping reinforce among millions of Americans these ridiculous, hateful, and in many cases, homicidal views of Jewish Americans and those in Israel. That's what they're doing. And of course, sometimes it doesn't come in the form of actively using the language. Sometimes it's just apologizing for the language when it's used. So when neo-Nazis are marching in the streets chanting that the Jews will not replace us, and the right wing, both the elected officials, Donald Trump, and their media wing as well, are all trying to pretend that it's not an issue, apologizing for the fact that they're literally killing counter-protesters. That's how you help to normalize this stuff. If you're actually concerned about anti-Semitism, this is where you would strike. But conveniently, I don't know, those college kids that don't want the war to go on, what if we pretended that they were the big problem and thus took the focus off of the militias, the neo-Nazis, and all of that? I want to go to one last claim, by the way, because I have said that they've connected these to the campus protests. So we have that. Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne says, America-hating, chaos-funding George Soros at work again, trying to destabilize our nation on behalf of Hamas terrorists. The correct response is what Texas did to stop these radical paid agitators who want Israel and America wiped from the earth, from occupying space at our public universities. So, try to work through the logic here. Congressman Beth Van Dyne is so concerned about the anti-Semitism at college campuses that she is invoking anti-Semitic tropes of billionaire puppet masters, like literally in the same tweet. Because these college students are paid agitators. They're not just students that care about this, although students have always reliably opposed wars. Okay, they also want Israel and America wiped from the earth. These college students want their own country wiped from the earth. Why? I don't know. Why George Soros, who is himself Jewish, would be trying to stoke anti-Semitism? I don't know that either. Perhaps there will be a later tweet that will help to clarify that. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?